back in my truck. So I figured I would start this video off discussing like ADHD stuff. So we're, I'm in Florida. We're getting ready for a hurricane. So I have found over the years, personal experience, working with, kids, and my own, that especially when there's like a low pressure system around, when there's like the full moon, the barometric pressure affects them. It affects me. So like I've been floating around with a headache half the day, because the pressure system's coming. So, and it's very interesting how like different environmental factors will set off, things like back to the full moon. I had a kid one time, little bouncing off the walls, and I told his mom, I said, it was a little bouncy today, and she's like, I don't know what's going on. And I'm like, well, we have a full moon coming, and it's just, are they going to turn into a werewolf? What? Like, no. It's again, like I said, it's interesting facts. And my dog's back there, one of them, walking back and forth. So besides that, the ADHD, there's a doctor that has uploaded some really interesting stuff to YouTube. His name is Russell A. Berkeley. If I can get a link to one of his videos, I will put it in the description. But he really, for me, kind of hit the nail on the head where, ADHD, even though it's attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, it's really not an attention disorder. It's, because we really have the ability to pay attention to something, especially if we really want to. If it's interesting to us, we're going to learn about it, and we're going to know all about it and hyper-focus on it. But ADHD is really a disruption or a barrier or a break in from what you know versus what you're doing. So you can know what you're doing, know what you're supposed to do, but you're not going to do it. And that's, you need to be paying attention to math class, but if math is not interesting to you, you're not going to pay attention. You're going to be doing other stuff. I know when I was in school, how I kind of focused before I was diagnosed as ADHD was that I would doodle all of my papers, all of my notes, everything in the little side margins of the paper. They all had little doodles. That's how I kind of trained myself to, help myself
New text
focus.
Message from 60680.
No, I don't care. Our school has texted us letting us know that there's no school tomorrow. Kind of figured that. There's a hurricane out there. But overall, I think ADHD really is incorrectly labeled. So that's my big thing with ADHD's taking off with me. But yeah, like it's not an inability to pay attention. It, the ability is there, which again, Dr. Berkeley talks about, it's a it's a neurological disorder of sorts. Don't quote me on that. It's probably the wrong wording, but in the best way that we have to help neurological disorders is medication. And I know over the years I've had lots of parents, not want their kids to be diagnosed. They don't want them to be labeled. They don't want them to, it's a label. No, really, if you want to call it a label, it's a label. But with that label, you're able to get your child help. When your child is diagnosed as ADHD, or yourself, if you're going back to college and doing things, you and your child, or both, will get what they call a 504 plan. And that allows for accommodations for, various, things. Like my son, whom, even though he's also on the spectrum and should have an IEP, the school board only gave him a 504 plan because with that, he does well. He doesn't need anything else, quote unquote. I fought them for years on that. However, if he's restless, or he not really restless, but like if your child focuses better by standing on their head in the back of the room, as long as they're not disrupting the other children, it can be written into their 504 plan that they're allowed to stand on their head in the back of the room as long as they're listening and paying attention. If they need a fidget, they can have a fidget. If they need to lie on the floor in the front of the classroom, they would be allowed to do that as long as they're not blocking the teacher or anybody else's learning. So a 504 plan is a definite help, but you're not going to get the 504 plan unless your child has been diagnosed. So, or yourself. So that label, as people want to call it, really does have benefits. And I know there are some pediatricians now that, like my kid's pediatrician, if they just were ADHD and didn't have all the other issues that they have, their pediatrician would be able to diagnose and prescribe them their medications. We see a psychiatrist because they have other things. So it's gonna
New
talk
text
again.
message from Eileen.
So I lost my train of thought. Dang it. Oh yeah. So like a lot of the pediatricians nowadays, like I said, can prescribe medications for ADHD, and they can diagnose your kids with ADHD. If you think there's other things going on, like I thought there was other things going on with both of my children, you figure out which psychiatrist is on your kid's Medicaid, I almost said Medicaid, insurance, Medicaid, whatever you have. And you get, if you have to get a referral or whatever, you go see the psychiatrist, and they will, even the pediatrician might be able to do this, refer for a 6-hour psychological study, which will definitely let them know if your child is 100% ADHD. It also goes over, how their working memory is, how their visual processing is, how their auditory processing. It goes over like a lot of the developmental aspects, and if there's anything else going on, which that's how we found out my daughter is dyslexic, which again I already knew because it kind of runs in the family. And, you know, I found out that my son was on the spectrum. So, which doesn't run in the family, but my goddaughter is also on the spectrum, and he acts just like his god sister. So, it was like, yeah. But again, as I said before in my previous video, you know, I have worked with children for over 20 years. I do have my bachelor's degree in early childhood education, with, you know, special needs trainings in there. I'm not a doctor by any means. I cannot give you any medical advice. I will always tell everybody to talk to your pediatrician, talk to your psychiatrist. However, if you are not getting the answers that you want from your pediatrician, a psychiatrist, or whatever healthcare professional you are seeing, you are your child's advocate. I cannot stress it enough to parents. You are your child's advocate. If you don't like the answers you got, or the lack of answers, or what have you, get a second opinion. Get a third opinion. You know, it doesn't hurt to get other opinions. And if your pediatrician says one thing and you want to get a more specialized, you know, opinion about something, that's where the psychiatrists come in. And actually, when we first started seeing specialists, we initially saw a neurologist. So, psychology, neurology, you know, you can give me second or third opinions from either one of them too, because it is a brain dysregulation, dysfunction, ability, however you want to word it. So, that is my video today on ADHD, which was a little ADHD because I haven't had my meds today, and we have a hurricane. So, peace out, y'all. See you next time.